guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with Raj from MCAT Bros. I'm not sure if you know about MCAT Bros, but it was something near and dear to my heart in undergrad when I was pre-med. So we have him here today to give you a little bit of information about himself, a little bit about what MCAT Bros is, and all the great stuff. So Raj, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Raj of MCAT Bros. I started MCAT Bros in 2018 after kind of helping people on platforms like Reddit and Student Doctor Network for free for a couple years. Made a lot of free resources that are still available for free on our website at mcatbros.com. And it kind of started as like an amateur business when I was in med school, just helping people and giving honest information that I wasn't seeing much of in the space, and really trying to focus on everyone's individual needs and solving them, and trying to really solve any issues that were happening in the MCAT market, making things more accessible, making things more inexpensive, making things more personalized, making things more comprehensive, making better resources, building communities so people feel less alone, especially if they're non-traditional, giving a space to ask questions that are maybe not talked about, and just sharing information, especially during COVID and even the post-COVID era, to allow people to make good informed choices about their MCAT journey, pre-medical journey, and actually non-pre-medical journey as well. Is medicine right for you, or is another path right for you? And so you can discover that earlier and faster and just be the best self that you can be.
I think that's so important because as someone who used to be pre-med in the medical community, we knew that the culture was very cutthroat, like it was very competitive. No one was helping each other, but no one did anything about it. No. We didn't have any sense of community. Everyone was still in competition with each other, was super sneaky, trying to, go around things to be able to like get a one up on everyone and like not help each other. So I think it's so important to have that sense of community because it is a tough journey, especially for those who are not, on the traditional path. It's a whole journey you're about to embark on and you have no idea about what you're about to encounter.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think some people like have the information and others don't. And I think there's this big discrepancy, especially for students who are first generation in their family to go into medicine, or don't have that social capital, or don't go to a university that offers a lot of support. Or even if they do go to a university that offers a lot of support, they might not know about everything, or they might just be a little bit different than their peers. So, what is being said is not working for them, and they need to kind of change up the scenario a little bit to kind of make it work for them. So I think, just sharing journeys. I remember when I featured a student and she had a 500 MCAT score, and she was like, "Are you sure I'm good enough to give information and guidance?" I said, absolutely, because people need to hear that different situations you can still learn from. You don't need to just learn from someone perfect and who went to an Ivy League medical school. Right. There's so much more, and everyone has their unique journey to go to different medical schools. So that's kind of like what we said. You can get into medical school with a 495 or a 500 MCAT score, which was unheard of before. Because a lot of people are promoting you need this perfect score. A lot of advisors are promoting you need this perfect score. And sense of community. I remember when I was studying for my MCAT, I was looking for friends who were studying. I couldn't find anyone in my area. So we really tried to build community. Here in Miami, we have a 250-person WhatsApp chat where people are studying and can help each other. And some questions you don't want to ask publicly to your friends because you might get judged, like you got a bad MCAT. Yeah. You can't really say that to your friends. So this allows you to maybe ask a question anonymously and kind of get some feedback, or ask me directly where I don't know any of our friends.
Of people who are going through it, the same exact thing, experiencing the same thing.
And you can connect with people who have similar situation as you, like below 500 MCAT score, or thinking about PA school, or thinking about medical school, or living in Miami. So you can really connect with people who are very similar, especially if you're non-traditional, not in school. You lose that community completely, right? So it really becomes important to connect if you want. Get a study buddy. Get someone you resonate with. Maybe you don't resonate with anyone in undergrad. You resonate with someone, who's answering a lot of questions in the chat. So you can really connect with someone. Maybe you resonate with someone who's up at 1 a.m. You can find someone with a larger community. And speaking of community, we have a 47,000 person Facebook community, which is crazy. The largest in the world. And for pre-meds, pre-PAs, we have sub-communities. If you are interested in PA school, we have a 7,000 person community of pre-PAs, and you can just connect with people similar to you all over.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love one thing that stood about you and your platform was the transparency to me. Again, like you said, like some people think, oh my God, a 495, a 500, like how am I going to apply to medical school? But there's people who get in. And so it's good to know those stats because if it works for someone, it can work for you.
Absolutely.
At what point in your journey did you transition from, okay, I'm trying to help others, provide a sense of community and belonging, and provide some advice to, okay, this is going really well. It's taking off. Let me, I know you have like workbooks. Let me create some workbooks for students. Let me host any speakings you do. At what point did you turn it into a business?
Yeah,
per se?
That's a great question. So I think my initial goal was to be a doctor and do education on the side and for free. But for me, I realized education is what I liked more, and I wanted to pursue it full time. So I think, I think when I started to see I wanted to pursue it full time, that is really when we started to have some monetized and paid platforms and services. But not only that, I think there were certain concerns that students had that could not be done for free. So, people were asking, can I have a printed copy of the 300-page psych notes? And they were paying $100 for it at Office Max or Staples. And we said, we can do it for cheaper with shipping for $30.
Yeah.
So we said, we can cut the cost. And people wanted a private tutor, some people. And the tutors were charging $200 to $300 an hour back in 2018. This is even before COVID, which is like today's $300 an hour. And we said, we can do that for $40 or $30 dollars an hour, and we can still pay people fairly. People were asking for a schedule, and people were just messaging me for free help. And I was realizing that, some people need a little bit more support, and free can only go so far. So we wanted to do the free, do the community, give the information, but for the people who needed more, had that one-stop shop that was affordable, comprehensive, where we controlled how good the tutors were, we controlled the advice, we controlled their individualized schedule, and I was finding that, if I had to send someone and I didn't have the time in med school to make a schedule, no one did it.
Yeah.
No one makes a schedule to this day. I don't know a single company who does. If I wanted to say, hey, there's no expiration for a service, is there anyone who can help? No one. So when I was thinking of dropping out of med school, I really was trying to look for another service that I could send my students to, that I trusted, that worked.
There wasn't anything.
I couldn't find anything. So I said, you know what? There's a huge need. People are spending $2,000 to $10,000, usually about $2,000, and they're not getting anything. And it's expiring. It's not working. And then they're coming to me. So I said, hey, let's do my part in fixing the problem a little bit.
Tell me a little bit about your dropping out of medical school. I'm sure that was a really tough journey for you. We know as pre-meds how much effort it takes to even get into medical school.
Sure.
So how that was kind of like the feeling of, was that all for nothing, how you felt, and then also anything if you'd like to say to others, because I've seen this comment online before that, oh my gosh, but why are you going to take advice from someone who dropped out of medical school?
Yeah.
There's lots of stereotypes and lots of assumptions on what had happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So first, it was a hard decision. I took two kind of gap years in medical school. So some schools do allow you to take some time off from medical school to explore other options. Usually that is for research, a step or complex studying. Or for a family emergency. But, for me, it was to kind of run my business, to grow it. And kind of every time I would go back after kind of running my business, I went back 2 times. I would never feel the passion or the community at my medical school. And I really felt community, a sense of belonging in my business. And so that was like a really important pull for me to continue my business. Every time I went back to medical school, I think it was also hard to run my business. And we were a business that promised 1,500 clients before I left, unlimited service. And I don't think I really realized what that meant, but I didn't want to be one of those med students who said, well, I charged you some money, but med school is more important. And so sorry, or I'm not going to respond. And basically just keep the money or do, and not give a quality service. So, I think that was really, I put my business first, and I put the people I charged first. So, and I think any business should do that. And so that's what we did. But it was hard because I'd done 2 years and 3 months. A lot of people said, why don't you finish off? But finishing off is tough because if you have 1,500 clients, and even if they message you once every 2 weeks, one of them is going to be a full-time job there. And being at the hospital is a full-time job. Studying for shelf exams is a full-time job. So I wasn't able to handle everything. And I had to make a decision. This business that I had built had about 20,000 followers by the time I had quit medical school, had 1,500 paid clients, a lot of people saying really great things, a lot of people saying, thank you, I improved, I did so much better with you versus this other company, first generation students saying, this is a program I could actually afford. And that just felt really good. And I think I got that very early, and it's kind of immediate gratification a little bit. I think that felt good too. But I also I think I always loved education. I was always in the tutoring space, education space, building communities, building resources. So to be paid for something I love to do and to be able to expand it and to make it my career was really wonderful. But I did understand there were social implications of leaving, because I had told everybody I'm pre-med. I'm going to be a doctor. So everyone that knew me since high school was like, I'm the pre-med and I'm the future doctor. So, and there is kind of like, oh, he quit medical school because he's not good enough, or he failed, or he got kicked out, or, you know, that's what people assume.
People say everything.
Yeah, people assume that like you couldn't have made the choice. And I think even when you drop pre-med, I know so many people who could be doctors, but they chose to do something else.
100%.
And there's so many people who continue because they told everybody. The social stigma of leaving, or, you know, and the implications and the biases that come with that. So I think I had to say, you know, what's right for me, what I want to do. And I kind of went against the grain in all odds from the very start, and everyone loved it. So I said, you know what? People said you need a degree to do this. Well, I never even said I was in medical school to everyone that that was never on my page until I dropped out. So my score was never on my page. So people liked what we had to offer, and it's so much beyond my score or 100%. Me being a medical student or not. Our service and our results speak for themselves. And I think there's so much greatness you can do. Unless you want to do clinical medicine at the highest level, then yes, you have to be an MD or DO in the United States. But if you're doing anything else, it could help the degree. But if you are able to do what you're doing without it, then why would you do it? So, and I really, suggest students to say, if you want to do clinical medicine, get that MD or DO degree, especially if you want to do it as a physician. If you like clinical medicine and you could consider doing it as a PA or as a nurse, or another one, a CRNA or anesthesiology assistant or PT, or figure out what works for you. Explore. And then if not, medicine's not right for you, look at research, look at education, look at so many different things. You can look at something like MCAT Bros, but that's unique. There was no clear path to that. But you can look at entrepreneurial venture, that's unique as well, and see how that works for you too. And you could also explore in medical school. Take a break, take a year off, see if something else is of interest, and see if it doesn't work, go back. You can quit med school, go back. My sister's scenario is she left medical school to start a business. Didn't like it, liked medical school more, so she reapplied, got in again, and she's a physician now. Yeah. So you can really have a non-traditional path in medicine, which is usually never talked about, to be honest.
Yeah, or looked down upon. Something you mentioned, which I thought was really, really good you mentioned, is you said some people make these assumptions because they can't think. How can someone choose not to continue on that route? How can someone make that choice? Yeah. And like you said, some people think, oh, this person pursued another route now because they were not able to get in, because they were not able to continue.
Correct.
Which is so incorrect. Like you had mentioned, I know so many peers of mine who are in the thick of medical school and still never explored other options. So they're still curious, but they just stick with their day-to-day in medical school because they think they're too deep into it.
Correct.
Which makes me upset, because if you go through all of that debt, that time, invest your whole being up until then to be in that profession and then not be happy at the end of the day, what is it worth?
Yeah.
And so I think that was something I faced a lot. Like I used to pride myself a lot on being pre-med, and it took a lot of self-reflection. And what do I want? What makes me happy? What would I want for my future? Yes, I love medicine, but I didn't know early on all these other options that I had. And after exploring it, to me, it was a no-brainer. But some people did look down upon, but you're not going to be a doctor anymore, but you wanted to be a surgeon. What do you mean you're not doing that? I made that decision. It's not because I couldn't go into medical school. I didn't have the stats. I know I was very well prepared and, above the stats of many people I know who got into medical school. So what bothers me is that, and that's something that isn't spoken about.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of in the medical community that we are the best. There's this slight arrogance to it.
That's true.
And everyone else is less than, basically. Yeah. So how could you drop to less than? And I think that becomes embodied by a lot of people in the medical community. I mean, not everybody. So that's kind of why. it's kind of like we make the most money on average, so so therefore we're the best. There's all these kind of fallacies that kind of exist, and it's so competitive, so expensive, and people work so hard, so people don't leave. I think a lot of people, should really explore before medical school, to be quite honest, as early as possible, because the truth is more people want to leave than they can, but they can't. They can't explore other options just due to finances of medical school, the debt of medical school.
They've already taken on.
And ultimately, once you leave, you have only a couple months to start. If it was loans, you only have a couple months to start paying those back. So really, a lot of people are actually stuck in that role.
Yeah.
And being a physician is a great career. But what expense does it come at for you? For me, I would love to be a physician and run MCAT Bros full time in the capacity that I do. But I realized I wasn't able to do both well. And, for me to expand in this direction, I had to leave. And it was COVID, and there was a lot of changes occurring. Really had to make that decision for myself. And so, for other people, it's maybe I want to spend more time with my family. And, the medical training process, maybe for them, it takes them 60 hours a week to study to pass. So it's hard. And maybe, they want a residency that's very time consuming. Maybe they want to start making money in 2 years or 4 years. And, medical school is not going to allow for that. So really seeing what you want for your short-term and long-term goals before you go into medical school is so important. And regarding like people switching out, I know people who got into medical school and spent years to get into pharmacy school, to get into PA school. It took them longer to get into PA school. And, that is atypical to get in and then switch. But I know people who got into medical school left and pursued other healthcare options or other ventures as well. So I've seen people get in and choose not to go, like just not even start, which is, I think, the best time is really reflect. But it is hard because they trap you. They trap you like financially with your time. And you kind of get stuck and you kind of say, let's keep going. But that tunnel doesn't really ever end if that's not what you want for yourself. It's not like end of medical school, you're done. If you want to be a doctor, you have to do residency and then you have to be a doctor and you have to really want to do that and everything that comes with it. So if you don't like clinical medicine, and that's what most of physicians do, like, why are you continuing? Unless there's a path that's for you, maybe, if I wanted to, there were some options where if I finished 2 more years of medical school, I could do some other options without residency. But for me, like with the option that I wanted, which is my business and doing the best for my clients, medical school was just not compatible with that.
Have you noticed maybe recently, if at all, that medical students, the pressure has come on earlier, that now people are trying to rush and already start studying for the MCAT, coming out of high school, freshman into college, which is ridiculous to do. Have you seen more students trying to rush, which is leading to their lack of exploring other options? That is like the pressure is what's creating that tunnel vision?
I think a little bit sometimes. I think there's so many options that you don't know about in high school or even early in college until you start looking at internships and start getting explored. Like, everyone knows what a doctor is. Everyone knows what a teacher is.
Right.
Everyone knows what an electrician is. Everyone knows what a plumber is. Right. But not everyone knows what like a pharmacist does, because you haven't really seen one in your everyday life till you're 18, especially if you're healthy. So there's so many careers like biotech. You don't see those people, people who are kind of out of sight of public. You don't see them, right? And new careers like PA school is more of a new career. So a lot of people haven't really seen that. Maybe now more so. So what you haven't seen, you don't know, right?
100%.
And people do kind of embody pre-med early. It depends, I think, on the person. Some people start when they're 50 and they say, I don't want to be a doctor. But some people do embody due to TV shows or whatever, cultural reasons. They want to start being a doctor early. And sometimes it's forced upon them or almost forced, even if it's not forced, through societal pressures and social norms in whatever culture they belong to. Sometimes I've seen that. Or maybe both parents are doctors, or both parents are not doctors and they wanted to be a doctor. So they said, hey, my kid is going to be a doctor. So you can be the doctor, right? So that's actually even more common, I think. So I think those pressures, and then oftentimes, especially younger children wanting to obviously appease their parents and then starting that process, and then that's all you know, you don't really explore much. But also, it makes it the pre-medical process sometimes makes it hard to explore other options as well.
100%.
Because you do need to prepare early. You do need to sometimes, to get an advantage if you're still in high school, to take maybe the AP classes or the IB classes and start working on your standardized testing skills and getting those good letters of recommendations.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the universities where they have BSMD programs and linkage programs, and especially if you're in one of those, yeah, they say you can switch, but it's so hard. You already are accepted into medical school.
Yeah.
And the beauty is such a linear path, and it's so hard to get off that linear path and take that exit sometimes, right? Like, it's like, let's just keep going, right, until the very end. So because you envision it, you see it, it's just kind of hard to kind of navigate. But, you know, if you really love it and you really know the pros and the cons and you can really see yourself doing it and that's all you know and you love it, then keep doing it. But if you're seeing like, you know, I'm not happy here, or it's really troublesome and it's really affecting my life, and then you really have to evaluate, is this the pros worth the cons? Am I able to do everything I want as a physician, or is there something else that I can do that's maybe easier, maybe faster?
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing wrong with taking the easier path. I think a lot of people, let's say they made $2 million for doing nothing. I think a lot of people would say, you know what? I'll do something else, right? Like, so, right. I think a lot of people, right? But not everyone. But if you would say, you know, I'll still be a physician, then yeah, be a physician if that's really what you want to do. And I think a lot of people, are told that physicians make a lot of money and it's a stable life. I think that, you know, that's not talked about enough, but I think they envision that and they see that.
Yeah.
But that is true to some regard, but I don't think they realize like you can't do that, do something just for that reason.
Yeah.
Because
which a lot of people do.
I think just for that reason is not enough. Could that be an extra bonus? Sure. Mm-hmm. But that can't be the only reason. I don't think, because there's so much other great fields out there that do so well, you can live a great life on, or even make the same as a physician eventually, that have a lot less work, and that's almost sometimes a smarter decision for some students to take, in my opinion.
Your time is what will generate anything you have interest in, any money coming in. So let's say, a physician wants to, or someone wants to be a physician and make $250,000 a year. Great.
Yeah.
And your counterpart wants to be a PA and they're going to make half of that salary a year. Great. But the PA has more flexibility with time, usually working less shifts, while as a physician, especially in my experience being in surgery, it's extremely demanding on the physicians. They are there every single day, all day. It is their life. The PAs work 3-4 days a week. They have more of a balance. Outside of then, now they have other opportunities to gain an income. So they either work on the side at a med spa, they either work for, you know, some sort of like medical sales company as a rep, and they have the time now to work in different fields to generate as much of an income, if not more, than a physician. So we do have that tunnel vision. And I think, yes, a lot of like pressures, familial pressures, cultural pressures, especially when it comes to the PA field, it's not really anywhere else. I know that they have it a little bit in Europe, the PA profession. But for example, my parents are Brazilian. They didn't know what a PA was. What do you mean you're not going to medical school? That was the only option growing up, you know? So it's things that we don't know about. And as a first gen, who's here to tell you? Like, you really have to figure out yourself. Now, have you seen maybe post-COVID higher trends of people who were pre-med starting to go to other fields, or you think it's kind of been the same, whether they're switching to, you know, pharm, like you said, or they're switching to pre-dent, or they're going to pre-PA?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm so fortunate for is like we have a personal relationship with all of our clients, which is over 5,000, which is crazy, and I know them all personally. So every 6 months to a year, I kind of follow up with students, and post-COVID, I think COVID was an era where some people said, I really want to be a doctor, or they said, I really don't want to be a doctor. I think that was a big transition. I think also people, like, especially I think in the information age that's been going on since YouTube started and Instagram and TikTok, there's just so much more information to younger people who are also on these platforms, rather than just your advisor at school.
Who gives you inaccurate information.
Who gives you inaccurate information, right? So like you have this like you see that successful PA, you see that successful lawyer, you see that successful electrician, right? So you can really kind of decide what's for you based on accurate information. Like, you can decide to apply with a 495 MCAT score because you know what? There are schools that accept that. You don't need a 515 because of information, which can empower your decisions. So I think a lot of people, due to a variety of factors, maybe cost of living is higher, loan interest rates have increased. Cost of medical school has increased. It's insane. I mean, some schools are charging with cost of living over $100,000 a year right now.
Crazy.
After the interest rate of 8 to 10%, which is what it is even with government loans, it's even crazier. So I think a lot of people are saying, and it's really expensive to live. Hey, I want to do something quicker. I want work-life balance. And I'm definitely seeing, and there's just more awareness. Hey, maybe perfusionist school, which is super rare, or PA
That's
school.
So cool.
Yeah, or
I
PA
really
school.
think so too.
And you know what? Like, that's better for me. And no one knows about those until they're in the thick of it and they're looking at other options, or they're in the hospital. That's why hospital experience is so important, or PA or nursing and then CRNA. There's so many options, and many of them are new, and legislation is changing on what different professions can do and where they can do them. And I think a lot of people are switching. My own clients, which almost all of my clients come in with pre-med because that's the only reason you would take the MCAT. Sometimes podiatry, you'll take it for that.
Oh,
But
interesting.
so most of my clients are coming in as pre-med or pre-podiatry. And most of them are not looking at any other option. They're saying, you're going to get me in, and, that's why I'm here. But I think a lot of them, they discover, I always like to post when people switch into a profession, and people really do switch into a lot of things, like, histopathology, PhD paths, even biotech industry, sales reps, as you mentioned, even real estate. I've seen people just do something completely different. So whatever interests them, and some people, they switch and they come back, and there's nothing wrong with that too. Make some money, explore your options, and you'll be a doctor for the rest of your life. Because I think it's harder to quit being a doctor or quit medical school.
100%.
To be honest.
And you come back being more secure in your decision,
Yeah.
and sure that, okay, this is what I want. I've actually taken the time to explore everything else.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, I know you said get that exposure, see what's out there. I know social media is great because we have a lot at the tip of our hands, a lot of knowledge. We can literally go on TikTok and search up whatever field and find videos in that field. But a lot of things are also skewed, right? What you see on social media isn't the day-to-day and the thick of things. What you see on a TV show, which a lot of people influences their decision into going down a certain path or career. How do you, or what do you recommend to a student who, okay, maybe, I would like to explore other options. I'm not sure if, which I know friends myself who just went on TikTok or just went on Google, looked it up. What does this doctor do? Okay, I can do that. Great. That's what I'm going to pursue. After shadowing them, they're shocked, right? Seeing their day-to-day, how things run, they're shocked, deterred from what they thought it was, etc. What is your best advice to a student who's wanting to explore, doesn't know how to start from there?
Yeah, I think it is very difficult, actually. And that's something I don't fully help with 100%. And you can't really explore everything. Like,
Right.
it's very time consuming, and there's a cost to it as well. And it's a lot of unpaid time of exploring things. And so sometimes you just got to pick something and run with it sometimes.
Yeah.
So I do understand the pre-meds who pick it and they run with it, and that's fine. But I think, and sometimes it's just a chance thing. You saw it and you ran with it there. But I don't really do this, but I would maybe one day, but like speak with someone who really specializes in that area. This is your life. Bigger picture than taking the MCAT and doing well is, do you even need this exam for your goals, right? Like, do you want to be a doctor? And I do that part at least, but I don't really always help them what is best for you. But I think really, if you have an inclination to social media, if you have an inclination to speaking events, if you have an inclination to being creative, really figure out what your natural inclinations are, and if the career that you're choosing is meeting those natural inclinations, because you're usually going to be happier if you're doing something you're naturally like talented at. Could you do
100%.
something could you do something else? Yeah, sure, you can. But if you're naturally good at test taking, you're going to be much happier in medical school than if you are horrible at test taking. Can you become a doctor being horrible at test taking? Yeah, you can. You can struggle through it, take the boards 3 times each,
Right.
take the MCAT 5 times, and spend 8 years in medical school like my friend. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, do what feels naturally correct and maybe seek help and don't use social media, because social media is skewed both ways, the worst and the best. It's really never in the middle. And I think like looking at information and data sometimes rather than what you saw on social media is helpful. For example, like, instead of saying, oh, like, so-and-so made $1 million, for example, like, and money is an important decision of career choices. Maybe that's not the average, right? And maybe that's not the type of doctor you can become, right? And there's so many hidden things that are required to get to that stage, right? Right. So, and there's a PA making $1 million too. I think that might be the exception, to be honest, or someone
100%.
who hates their life and that school sucks. And that probably is also not true. And right. So there's always something in the middle. So I think experiencing it for yourself, and I think looking for like maybe someone not on social media, because I think social media brings certain personalities, I think.
Agreed.
To be honest.
Right.
And that's someone who is on social media as well. I think the truth lies beyond social media, because most PAs are not posting all the time on social media.
100%.
Most doctors and medical students are not the ones posting. None of my friends who are doctors are social media influencers. And I know over 1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Almost none of my clients are social media influencers. And we have over 1,000 people who are in medical school right now. So, so social media is kind of only a small snippet, but also your shadowing experience might be a small snippet. So really explore if you like it or don't like it. Just give it 1 or 2 chances or 3 chances and really navigate the field that way.
So clearly you are a wealth of knowledge. You have a great entrepreneurial spirit. Being on the medical fields, like we said, pre-med and in medical school, you have this tunnel vision. So where did you have the time to explore that part of you, or when did that come out?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So my dad, when I was growing up, always had a small business that worked with people. I would always hear it. It was a completely different business, but he would always be talking to people, and medical school had almost no talking to people in it. So I really liked talking to people. In undergrad, I ran a lot of, and actually, even in high school, I ran a lot of community pages on Facebook and Instagram. So building community, building networks, leveraging people, building things. And in medical school, you don't get a lot of building. You get a lot of building your knowledge, but you don't really get this like building a company approach
Of course.
or building a product that's used by 100,000 people type of approach. So, or doing something once and millions of people kind of benefit from. So I think I kind of was doing work like that, where I was trying to, do that in undergrad. And in undergrad, I also had a lot of leadership opportunities because I went to a small school and I was in student government. I was, made my own club, and all these small things that I was doing kind of gave me skills. And I didn't do them just for the resume. I did them because I really liked them and I did the best I could at them. And because I did those things, I had the right skills because I was doing the stuff I loved to do what I loved. Because I became a good teacher. I became a good test taker. I became a decent entrepreneur. And another thing which is kind of interesting is I used to play this game called RuneScape, and which is some people haven't heard of, some people have heard of it. And I kind of actually developed a lot of my entrepreneurial skills from that game, actually, where there was buying and selling and things increasing in price. And it was just a very interesting way that was unexpected to kind of build an entrepreneurial spirit. And I don't use as much of that, but I kind of knew how to deal with customers and transactions and deliverables and things like that. So service-based industry, I was very good at. And before I started my business, I made all the products for free. So I kind of didn't realize, but that was content marketing. So I became the best content marketer because I did it for 2 years for free. Yeah, I made thousands of pages of content marketing and answered tens of thousands of questions for free. So yeah, so I kind of, some of it happened by chance and just general things I just kind of explored and just brought together my medical background, which really does help. And I think earlier you asked me, do I regret quitting medical school or any of that? No, not at all. Like, I think I'm glad I went in my case because I learned so much. I developed more networks. I understood test taking even better. So for me, it was a great experience. But I think for most people, like, it's not something they can leverage as well until they finish, to be honest. So I think for me, it worked out really well, though. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, everything seems so great. You are super awesome at what you do. I can attest to MCAT Bros. I don't know how long we've known each other.
I think
don't even know
2019.
how I even found your page.
Yep.
No idea. I think just it was a big thing at UF, if I'm
At
not
UF,
mistaken.
it was very large. Actually, some of our UF students just graduated residency.
Okay.
So, and they were like, I heard from a friend. I said, I heard from a friend of a friend. And I think we got lucky. I think we had helped one student at UF improve 38 points who goes to FA. Yeah, it was lucky. It was just luck. The guy was really good, right? I think it wasn't just us. We had the right service for the right person. And, 8 months later, we promoted his story, and then we had 300 clients that month. Just social networks. I think sometimes you're right. People do kind of hide information, and that there's a lot of that. I think there was just a conference at Harvard I went to. No one knew about it, even in Boston. No one even knew about it at Harvard itself. There was another research conference at Harvard this weekend I went to. No one knew about it, and it's such a great opportunity. So there's these national level things that are even free that are happening, and we try to do a lot of exposure to that. There is a lot of gatekeeping, and even in our service, there'll be some people who used our service, and then some other company will come and pay them, and they'll say they use theirs.
Wow.
Right? Because, everyone just wants to make money or whatever.
Yeah.
And we try to keep an authentic advertising platform where we don't pay for endorsements. So, I think word of mouth is there, though. I think people do tell close friends, even if it's not to the public or to a club. But people, and we got very lucky with that, where some communities, and I've definitely noticed, especially minority communities, they tell like their friends and their family and their siblings because they just want people to succeed. And when they see that price point, it's just so easy, so hard just to keep it from everyone.
Yeah, no, word by mouth. I remember it was a huge thing when I was an undergrad. You guys were amazing. No one else was posting the things you guys are posting, sharing the information, being as transparent as you were, especially myself, like first generation pursuing the medical route. It was very, very difficult. You made it so much easier. Yes, I felt so, I guess, horrible that you invested your time into me as a pre-med student, and I didn't end up going pre-med.
That's okay.
But you were great. I can attest to your morals and values on how you run your business. I mean, if it was months gone by that I was kind of like ghosting and I was like, oh, I'm not on the medical path, like I feel bad, you were still checking up on me. You were there for every single one of your students. And that just goes to attest to how successful your business is today.
And one thing that we are doing is, instead of having people spend a lot of time on the MCAT and just really pushing the MCAT and admissions process, because I was still in medical school at the time, is really, but now I've seen a lot of people switch. And we're saying, you know what, is this what you want? And like making that maybe a little earlier. Like you've been studying for the MCAT for a year. You want to keep going at this, or do you want to apply to medical school right now and maybe go to a different school, maybe not one you hoped for, or you're ready to apply, or are you really interested in spending year after year kind of exploring this option, or why are you not doing it? Because usually you're not applying, you're not going, not because you can't, because you don't want to. You're not doing it.
You see people sitting back on it. Okay, I'll do it another year.
Yeah, because you're really looking at something else, and maybe there's something else that you would really like, and you'll just go after and just do it really fast, to be honest. And there's nothing wrong with spending 5 years or 10 years in the medical space if that's what you want to do, or getting into medical school. But really you have to figure out, do you want to do that, or do you want something else, especially if you're struggling. So I think sometimes struggling or doing bad on the MCAT or doing bad in school is a blessing in disguise, because it can allow you to look for something else, force you to look for something else sometimes, versus doing really well. You sometimes don't look for those other options, but I do have students who do very well who look for other options as well, because there are some great options out there. And some people say doing medicine is not always the best option, and definitely not for everyone. And everyone's different. For some people, being a doctor is the best option for them. And for other people, it's definitely isn't. So MCATBros.com gives us our information, our website. We'll give you our email as well as our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at MCAT Bros. We are actually on every platform though, but Instagram is the one we most use. Or you can find us on Facebook.com/groups-MCAT Bros. So it's a big community, and we really focus on community, but we do have services as well. So anything that you need in terms of paid help or free help, just reach out, and we really do try to help for free if it's like something quick and easy. But if it's something that's comprehensive and you need some help, we try to make it very affordable and comprehensive.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
I know your time is very valuable. You are a busy, busy man. So I appreciate you being here and sitting down with me. And I hope everyone watching gained a wealth of knowledge of just the medical field, any advice, learned something new today, whatever it may be.
Try to make the process enjoyable, like figuring out what you want to do and grad school, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of, oh, it's so horrible. But like for me, when I studied for the MCAT, it was hard, but it was enjoyable. And really, like if you can find that enjoyment and find that balance in life, and even in the process of getting to it, will there be hard days and difficult times? Sure. But, it shouldn't be year after year of misery in whatever you decide to do in terms of education planning. And even MCAT planning, it should really be a relatively doable and enjoyable time. So don't drive yourself to depression, because of whatever. And don't drive yourself to, and unfortunately, suicide in the case of some physicians and medical students too. Don't drive yourself to that. And
Huge in the community.
It's huge, and so just figure out something for you. And billions of people in the world, and there's so much out there. Even if the community, if you're watching, you're kind of in, you might be even PA and medicine, and that's it. And there's even so much more. You might be just healthcare. And there's so much more than just healthcare, to be honest, right? And really, really just find that. And the earlier you find that, the better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
If you guys liked Raj on the podcast and you want to see more content like this, like, subscribe, comments, all the great things. And hopefully I'll have more coming to you guys soon.